So, United States versus Lopez. We're talking about U.S. versus Lopez, the second required Supreme Court case. So the background, if you read the background of the case, it says the U.S. Constitution set up a system of government in which the federal government and the states share power. What is that called? Federalism, right? So this case is obviously a case about federalism. The powers of the federal government are limited and are described in the Constitution. Those enumerated delegated powers, those are powers given to the government in the Constitution. Other powers not delegated to the government, federal government, are reserved for the states. Which amendment? 10th Amendment. Very good. So Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution lists many of Congress's powers. Article 1 establishes the legislative branch. Section 8 sets up all of the powers, enumerated powers given to Congress. Among them are the power to create post offices, raise an army, coin money, declare war, so on and so forth. One of Congress's broadest powers is the power to regulate commerce among the states, the Commerce Clause. Right? It says Congress has the power to regulate commerce between states, with foreign countries, and Native American tribes. Many of the laws Congress passes depended on the power to regulate interstate commerce. In this case, however, it is argued that Congress passed a law that exceeded this constitutional power. Okay. So what are the facts of the case? Who wants to describe the facts of the case for us? What are the facts? Go ahead.
Congress passed the Gun Free School Zones Act to reduce gun violence in schools, and it described the people comparing a gun in the school zone. And at 12 years, there are 12 great cities was possessing a gun at a Texas school, and DOT ordered kids convicted by saying Congress didn't have the authority to pass it in the first place.
Perfect. It's perfect. The Congress passes the Gun Free School Zone Act. Student, 12th grade student, San Antonio, Texas, brings a gun to school. He's charged. He's charged initially under the state crime, the state law. Then those charges are dropped, and he's charged as a felony under the Gun Free School Zone Act. And he challenges. He's convicted. I think he serves 6 years in prison, sentenced to 6 years in prison and 2 years probation, I think. And he challenges it. He challenges the law. Right? It says Congress doesn't have the power to pass that law. So what is the constitutional question? What is the constitutional question? Very good. Does Congress have the constitutional power? Is it a power given to Congress to pass the Gun Free School Zone Act? If it's not, the law, what happens to the law? It's invalidated. It's one of those examples of judicial review, the Supreme Court striking down a law passed by Congress. Okay? And there's two, I don't know if you read the constitutional issues, the constitutional clauses, talks about the Commerce Clause. This is a commerce issue of commerce. Okay, it also talks about the necessary and proper clause, we know that. And then it talks about two previous Supreme Court cases. Anybody read those? Those are, go ahead, what does it have to do with? The first one, just generally.
How much personal farmer could grow?
How much wheat a farmer could grow. In the effort to increase wheat prices during the Great Depression, Congress passed a law limiting the amount of wheat that some farmers could grow, saying you can only grow this much wheat. Farmer challenged it, said it's my wheat, I can do what I want. Supreme Court says actually the distribution, the selling of wheat is a commercial activity, and therefore Congress has the right to, in this event during the Great Depression, to limit wheat production. Okay, and then the second case was about what?
It was about racial discrimination in specifically hotels, because a hotel team serves as customers. So then Congress used the Commerce Clause to say you can't discriminate because traveling from state to state and staying at hotels.
Right. Exactly. So Congress passes the Civil Rights Act of 1964, banning discrimination. hotel owner in Atlanta was refusing to rent rooms to men of minority men of color, and he was brought to court. He said, basically sued. He said, you cannot refuse to rent rooms as an owner to minorities. And he said, well, it's not technically commerce, so therefore it doesn't concern me. And as a business owner, I can do what I want. So Congress said, actually, it is commerce because you are on a highway, you're a hotel, you deal with people that are traveling amongst many states, which is commercial activity. And in that case, Supreme Court upholds the law, the Civil Rights Act, and basically says you cannot discriminate, you cannot prevent or not rent rooms to minorities. So this is the case. These are the kind of the backgrounds where Congress has basically upheld the Commerce Clause. Wheat production and discrimination, hotels and discrimination, has upheld the Commerce Clause as a power of Congress to limit certain activities. This question, so if we go through the back, you might want to write this down. You definitely want to write this down. So I would take out your notes, write this down. These are the background and facts of the case. It all revolves around the Gun-Free School Zone Act, passed in 1990. Congress passes the Gun-Free School Zone Act, making it a federal offense for any individual knowingly to possess a firearm in a school zone. Alfonso Lopez, a senior in San Antonio, brings a concealed weapon to school. I don't remember why you were at school. Part of it, I think his argument was kids were bringing guns to school. It was right around hunting season. They were going hunting. They were keeping guns in their cars to go hunting after school on the weekends, things like that. But anyways, they find out that he has a gun in school, and he is arrested. As I mentioned originally, it doesn't really, you don't need to know this, but he was tried under the state law first. It's one of those instances where there's concurrent powers. State has power to pass laws, federal government has power to pass laws. Those are concurrent powers. The state charges are dropped, and he's charged under the Gun-Free School Zone Act, which is a felony. He's going to be a felon for bringing a gun to school. So he's charged under the Gun-Free School Zone Act. He's convicted to 6 months in prison and 2 years probation. So he's going to challenge the law. He's going to challenge, not him personally, his lawyers are going to challenge the law. His lawyers say, well, first of all, Congress doesn't have this power. They don't have the power to pass the Gun-Free School Zone Act. Why not? Because it's not a commercial activity. If you looked at some of the arguments for the United States, the argument was Congress had the power to pass a law because, although not specifically guns in schools aren't commerce, guns are. School violence will affect commerce, and therefore the effect that it would have on commerce allows Congress to pass that law. The arguments for Lopez, the Gun-Free School Zone Act is not related to interstate commerce. Commerce means commercial activities. This is not a commercial activity. The other two, the wheat production and the hotels, was commercial activity. This is not, is what they're arguing. If a mere possession of an object were classified as commerce, then anything could be classified as commerce. Anything that you possess could be commerce, is what they're saying. That's their defense. So the constitutional question is what again? Does Congress have power to pass the gun-free school zone act? Exactly. Did Congress have the authority under the Commerce Clause to ban guns in schools? Congress says it does. It's commercial activity. Guns in schools and gun violence in schools will have an impact on commercial activity. So therefore, it is commercial activity. On the other hand, they said, no, it's not. Merely possessing an object does not relate to commerce. So the decision, this is one of the few instances in which the Supreme Court strikes down Congress's power to regulate commerce. The decision is, did Congress have the authority to ban guns in schools? No, it didn't. 5-4 decision. Congress did not have the authority to pass the Gun-Free School Zone Act. Mr. Board. Good, how you doing? Yeah. Who? Yes. To the media center? Sure. Yep. Okay. So in a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court ruled Congress did not have the authority to pass the Gun-Free School Zone Act. Why? Because merely possessing a gun is not a commercial activity. That's what the court said. So therefore, if it's not a commercial activity, Congress doesn't have the power to ban guns in schools. Education is by all those powers, is not specifically mentioned in the Constitution. It's a reserved power through the 10th Amendment. The power to ban guns in schools belongs to the states, not Congress. So can states ban guns in schools? Yes, absolutely. That's their power. Okay, through the 10th Amendment. But Congress, the federal government, does not have the power to ban guns in schools. And then, like I mentioned, this is the first time in over 50 years where Congress limits the power of Congress. I'm sorry, where the Supreme Court limits the power of Congress under the Commerce Clause. They have been extending commerce to include things like wheat production, discrimination in hotels, Civil Rights Act, things like that. But this one specifically says, Congress, you do not have that power. It's a restriction on the power. So it strengthens the power of the state governments and weakens, in this scenario, and regulating guns in schools takes away some of the powers of Congress. Yes?
What does that mean if there's still some schools today that let you bring a gun?
So it's all determined now by state law instead of federal law. Most states ban guns in and around schools. There are, like, in northern UP, in the UP and areas like that where people go hunting a lot. I've heard stories, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard stories that students bring guns to school to go hunting after school. Can't confirm that, don't know, never been up there, but I've heard that is common up there. So, but by the state law, states can regulate, and states have, the state of Michigan, most states have banned guns in and around schools. Which gets into a whole nother topic. Some people say guns should be allowed in school, like, you know, that's teachers, administrators, things like that should be able to. That's a whole different story. Okay, so I just want to show you this real quick before we take the test. I posted on here the notes, the Unit 1 review and study questions. So if you click on that, there's study questions for the test. There's a study guide. So if you open that, open, do it. So you have the study guide. All of these concepts, all the things that we covered in the first unit, these are questions. It's not an assignment, but it's questions to help guide your studying for the Unit 1 test. And then also, there's some review concepts. So the required Supreme Court cases, the 2 required Supreme Court cases, the 6 required documents, key vocabulary terms, the theories on democracy, all of the key concepts that come from the unit. So that is posted on there for you to go over to help study for your unit test.